I made a promise to myself at that point that if I ever got stable, I would live publicly with the illness. Because when I was sick, all I ever saw were other sick people. And I thought, well, this is it. This is just going to be my life. I'm just going to be in and out of hospitals and I'm never going to amount to anything. I wouldn't have had that mindset if I had seen other people with bipolar disorder or anxiety disorders, like living their life and being open about it. And so I said, I'm going to be open about it if I get stable, because I want people to know that there's life after this.
It's amazing because in sharing your story, you're giving hope to other people.
That's what I want, because that's what I needed.
Today on the Messy Parts podcast, you're going to meet Danielle Belton. She's the former editor-in-chief of HuffPost, and she's had an illustrious career: writer, journalist, artist. But the reason to listen to this episode is because she's had crushing defeats, both personally and professionally, along the way. She struggled with mental illness despite this incredible career. You will leave hopeful, motivated, and not afraid to go after the very thing that you want. Hey, it's Maryam. We wanted to let you know that today's episode of The Messy Parts contains a candid discussion of mental illness and suicidal ideation. If you or a loved one is struggling or in crisis, please seek help. Free and confidential support is available 24/7. Just dial or text 988 to connect with the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or visit 988lifeline.org. You don't have to go through it alone. Okay, here's the episode. So Danielle, I really love doing research on your story. I watched a commencement talk that you gave, and I learned a lot about you. And so I want to start at the beginning, because you describe your childhood with these very loving parents and two sisters, but you describe yourself as a kid who was shy, which was interesting to me because I don't consider you shy.
Well, I don't know if shy is the right word. I'm awkward. It was hard for me to make friends.
Why?
Because I was a little old person in a young person's body. Like, I pretty much was born 32. And it was really awkward to be a 32-year-old, 6-year-old with anxiety and worries. And I was very stressed out. I don't know why I was so stressed out at that age, but I was extremely stressed out. And I didn't understand other children. They didn't make sense to me. And so I got picked on a lot for being, a nerd. And I always wanted to play by myself. I didn't really want to play with the other children because they were often mean to me.
I read that when you described your anxiety as a kid, it almost was like something was crawling over you.
Yeah, it was very visceral.
Yeah, and hard for your parents to understand, or hard for you to have words for that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it started when I was probably about 4. I was afraid of like everything: camera flashes, loud noises, bright lights, heights, bugs, like you name it, I was afraid of it. Bugs were probably the worst because I would have a complete meltdown, like screaming, crying, completely terrified. And it drove my parents crazy because they just couldn't figure out like how to stop it. This is the 80s. My parents are silent generation era parents. They only had so much patience for this. And so it got to a point where they just basically just told me it was all in my head. All I learned how to do was to hide it, because it's all still there. It's never completely 100% gone away.
So you're growing up, and you clearly were a kid who liked the news. I read that you loved the news since you were like 11.
Yeah.
So did you turn that anxiety inward into like writing and news? Like, how did that relate?
Both my parents were news junkies. So I was inundated with just facts and information and current events. And my parents have these lively conversations about politics and history. And me being a 32-year-old, 6-year-old, always wanted to pipe in with my kid opinions. And unlike most parents of their generation who would have just told me to shut up and go somewhere, they actually would engage with me. Plus, I love to read. So I pretty much read anything I could get my hands on. And so journalism, just the news was a natural fit because it was something new every day that I got to read. And with my anxiety, yes, I did channel a lot of it into my creativity because I could draw and I could write. And I would spend hours and hours making cartoons and drawing comic strips and writing little novels and short stories. And I even made a little mini magazine called the Tuesday Times.
Did you have friends?
Not really. When I was little, I did not have many friends. I had one close friend Yolanda Wilson, my friend from kindergarten. It's a funny story. Uh, I came home from school one day complaining to my mother about there's this little girl and she keeps bothering me. And my mother was like, what does she do? I'm like, she keeps asking me to play with her. And I was like confused by it. And my mom was just like, why don't you just try playing with her? And I was like, okay, that seems weird, but I'll give it a shot. And so the next day at school, Yolanda, who's like a normal, 5-year-old, 6-year-old child, is like, hi, do you want to play? And I was just like, I guess, sure. And I played with her and we got along great. And I made a friend that day and we've been friends, I mean, pretty much ever since. And then she moved when we were in the 3rd grade. And I was devastated because I had literally no other friends.
So were you on the school newspaper?
Yes. I was very active in school despite my unpopularity because I didn't know any other way to be. Like I was very outgoing.
You go to college.
Yes.
And you study English because you knew you were going to go into journalism.
I started out as an art major because I thought I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist quite badly. And so I went to study art at SIUE, and my dad was just like, this is a terrible idea, because he knew I was going to hate it, because he knew I just like to tell stories with my art. It was still just writing at the end of the day. And so I remember I had to build a box out of wood for an art project, and I hated it so much, and I was so bad at it. And my dad, who is also an artist, he can draw and he can build things. And he basically helped me build the box. And then he pulled me aside and he said, hey, I wonder, have you ever considered the journalism program? I said, I don't think there's any money. And my dad was like, I was going to let you be an artist and there's no money. So, and I was like, that's a good point. And so from there, I switched to the journalism program. And those were my people. The art kids, God bless them, were not my people. Journalism students were my vibe. Like they had so much knowledge about so many different things, and they were so creative and so funny and so interested in the world and really motivated. And so I was really happy in the J School program at SIUE.
What happened to your anxiety at this point?
Oh, it was still there. It never went anywhere. Like my anxiety has followed me my entire life. Sometimes it's worse than others. Like I'd win awards for my work at school, and then I wouldn't want to show up for the award ceremony because I couldn't handle the attention from people.
Had you learned what it was or any coping mechanisms?
No, I still didn't have any at that point.
At what point did you get married in college?
After I graduated in 99, I got married in 2001 after I moved to Texas for my first job in journalism.
And you met him in college?
Yes.
And I love that you describe him as a bad decision.
Yes, it was a terrible, terrible, terrible decision.
Wait, so why did you marry him?
Oh, I was very sheltered as a kid. I had high, low self-esteem, if that makes sense. So it's like, on the one hand, I was very confident, but then there's this whole other side of me where I couldn't get boys to talk to me. Every boy I pursued either already had a girlfriend and wasn't interested, or just wanted to have fun and wasn't interested. I thought I was the problem. I didn't realize that I had chosen a school where most of the students weren't sure if they were even going to finish. It was a former commuter college that had transitioned into a 4-year institution. And a lot of the students, this was like their best shot at getting a college degree. I ended up there as a coincidence because my mom wouldn't give me $20 for college applications. My mom was cheap because she was traumatized by the poverty she grew up in as a child. So she could be really ridiculous about minor things that wouldn't bother anybody else. She never wanted to spend more than $10 on anything.
And it was a $20 application.
Yes. And SIUE was free. And so rather than listen to her yell at me about $20, I said, I'll just apply for this free school and go here. And of course I got in because I was an A student. And so most of the other students were not A students. Like they were all really struggling. And the boys weren't serious because they weren't looking to settle down or find a girlfriend or find a wife or find anything. And so therefore I wasn't of interest to them because I was a serious person.
But you found one who was interested.
Yes, who stalked me. And I didn't recognize that it was stalking until I was already too deep in the relationship. And I just thought, well, this boy likes me, so I should just give him a shot. No other boy is trying to talk to me. So I should just be grateful that I have this one. And that was like the worst decision ever. I mean, when you're young, you have this problem where you think that this is it, like this is forever. And it's like, no, life is long.
How did you figure out not to stay in this bad relationship and to stop being grateful and actually break that habit?
Oh, I think for me, like he basically effectively isolated me from all my friends and family. And I started to recognize that none of my dreams were going to come true if I stayed with this man. Like he had no ambition. He refused to go to work. He refused to go back to school. He just wanted to live off of me and like go to kung fu competitions. I took the end of the marriage really hard because I felt like I had ruined my life. Historically, there's a lot of pressure put on women to, get married. You have to have a man, otherwise you're not worthy. And I realized that all that messaging was wrong. I learned that the hardest way possible.
How long were you together?
We dated for 2 years. We were married for about a year.
So you recognize that you're in a bad situation. Then you moved to California?
I moved to California to work for the Bakersfield Californian in 2002.
And this is actually where you're like a star, but also your mental health issues begin to really catch up with you. Tell us about that.
So basically, after my marriage fell apart, I entered a deep depression. Like I think I lost 30 pounds in a month, like something crazy. While I never developed any proper coping skills for my anxiety, I developed one problematic skill that was my own way of coping with it, was to just pretend like the anxiety wasn't happening. So I'm very good at ignoring my anxiety and just powering through and continuing to work and do what I need to do to get the job done. The problem is it takes a toll over time and eventually causes psychological collapse.
So did it begin to show up in physical ways?
Yes. So like a grain of sand in my eye that wouldn't go away even though there was no grain of sand there. I had this dry eye feeling. Burning mouth syndrome, where my mouth felt like my tongue was scalded and the roof of my mouth was burnt and I couldn't taste food or smell food properly for like a month. Probably the most annoying is when I call the lookups. That's where I get so stressed out that I get blinded by the lights in the ceiling. I keep searching for something that's not there. It's like a short circuit in my brain happens and I suddenly I can't focus. I hate that one. But probably the one that I hated the most is this horrible clenching neck twitch. That happens.
Doesn't sound good.
It's very violent looking. And when that happens, I just have to go home and go to bed. Like it's just because there's nothing to be done about it.
And so how are you functioning at work? Because, journalism is not an easy career.
No. And like I said, I was very ambitious. So I took on a lot of work and a lot of different roles at the Californian. I would work from like 8 a.m. in the morning and I'd stay at work till like 10 o'clock at night some nights. And it would manifest in that I would start to get really bad anxiety after a while. It really started after one of my editors outed me as being divorced.
What do you mean?
I was at a bar with my coworkers and one of my editors, and I was complaining about my ex. I would always say, I have this ex and he's crazy. I just let people think he was my boyfriend. And I made an offhanded remark about him at the bar. And my boss at the time had remembered, that when I applied for the job, I had a different last name from when I came to work there. And so she knew that I was going through a divorce. At the time, she goes, yeah, aren't you glad you divorced that guy? And so everyone goes, oh my God, you were married to him? And then I just started drinking lemon drops, which were like the cocktail that she had bought for me. And so I just drank them the whole night until I was sloshed because I was in denial that I'd ever been married. I just didn't want to deal with that mistake anymore and the shame that came with it. And so for that summer, I pretty much had terrible anxiety. I would go to work and I would need to take a shot of tequila by lunch because the anxiety would just be so bad in my chest, the heart palpitations and the shortness of breath. And so my bosses all thought I was really efficient because I would get my work done before 11 because I knew the anxiety was coming at noon. So I needed to get whatever stories I had in as early as possible. So my city editor was happy, but I was absolutely miserable. And I eventually kind of fell to pieces by that fall. I went to the same editor that outed me. I went to her and told her how I wanted to take some time off, maybe go to a hospital. So I took a couple weeks off and got on antidepressants and then tried to figure it all out. And of course it didn't work because by the next year I was in a mental hospital regardless.
Were you at work when you ended up checking into the mental hospital?
The first time, how did I end up in the mental hospital? Oh, I wasn't at work. I had taken the day off. I had fallen to pieces that day. And I remember going to the ER, trying to get admitted to the hospital. And so the doctors take me in, they do a bunch of tests. They can't find anything wrong with me. And they send me home. And I remember I had an appointment with my therapist. And I admit to my therapist, I think I need to be in the hospital. And I just couldn't get in. And so she's like, do you agree that you'll actually go to the mental hospital, that you want to go? And I said, yes. She says, good. I'm going to call your psychiatrist now. And we're going to get you in one. And so she went through that process and she tells me, do you have anyone who can drive you? Because you can't take yourself. And I told him about my friend Jennifer and Lydia, and they came and got me. And I remember distinctly my doctor telling them, no matter what she says, she's already agreed to go to the hospital. So even if she changes her mind, still take her to the hospital. And I was like, well, why would I do that? I wouldn't change my mind. And like, sure enough, like after we go to my house, I gather my stuff, we get in the car, we're driving to the hospital. I'm like, guys, I actually feel like I'm fine now. They were like, nope, your doctor said you have to go. We're taking you to the hospital. And so then I was placed in the Bakersfield Mental Hospital for about a week.
And had you told your parents?
That first time, I'm sure I told my mom. I get things all confused now because it was 4 different hospitalizations in my 20s. And I remember about 2 of them well.
And your dad, had you told him?
I probably hadn't told my dad.
Because I think I read that was a really hard thing to do, tell your dad.
Yeah, my dad had a hard time in the beginning accepting that I had a mental illness. He was really scared for me and he just thought, I just need to make more money. And I'm just like, most people don't get suicidal because they're not making enough money. Like something is clearly wrong with me.
When were you diagnosed with the bipolar?
I was diagnosed in December 2005.
Still in California?
Yes. It was in Los Angeles at UCLA's medical center.
I definitely also have the ability to dissociate from my feelings, not quite to the degree that you're describing, but definitely, I remember when my father passed away, people would ask me where my dad was and I would sort of like joke through it, right? It's definitely a coping mechanism. You're describing something that's pretty severe.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you're excelling at work. At the other hand, you're completely falling apart. Mm-hmm. How did you make your way through showing up at work on a day-to-day basis?
That's an interesting question because I couldn't explain it. There was just part of me that just wanted it so bad. And I wanted to be good at it at the expense of my own mental health. It was the only thing that mattered to me. Like I'm not married. My marriage fell apart. I don't have kids. And so my career just meant so much to me. And it always had, because I'd had dreams and ambitions for myself since I was like, 5 or 6 years old. I never thought, I'll probably just, get married, have a whole bunch of kids, and like live like a nice normal life like my mom lived.
I read somewhere that you were in a meeting and you like fell asleep or you just fell over because it was, and that was like a turning point for you at work.
Yes. I was the entertainment reporter at the time on the lifestyle desk, and my then editor was having one of her meetings. I hadn't slept in days. And I fell asleep in the middle of the meeting and she got really angry at me. She went and told one of our bosses. And the leadership at the Bakersfield Californian, I can't say enough good things about them, were very supportive of me. And so their initial response was, wait, that doesn't sound like Danielle. That's not good. Why would she just fall asleep in your face? Something must be medically wrong. And so I remember they had this emergency meeting. They dragged me into Mike Jenner's office. He was the executive editor of the Californian at the time. And they basically ordered me to take a week off and go see a doctor to make sure I don't have narcolepsy.
But finally, there's this breaking point because you leave.
Yes.
And you're like done with journalism and you literally move back home into your parents' basement the way you describe it.
Yes.
And so what was that like?
It was humiliating. I felt like I was just another gifted and talented kid that never amounted to anything. It was just like, well, what was all that for?
Was there a moment where you were like, okay, I got to give this career up and move home?
There wasn't like a singular moment. It was like after the hospitalization in LA, I tried to go back to work. I was like a zombie. I was on so much medication. I found no joy in anything. And my therapist, Janet Perucci at the time, she basically said I needed to go home. Janet, who is a wonderful person, she's probably one of the best therapists I've ever had in my life. She saved my life on countless occasions when I was living in California. And she talked to my mom and dad, and she talked to my mom and she told her, she needs to go home.
I can see it's an emotional moment for you. You go back home and your parents were obviously very loving parents, but not equipped to deal with this situation. How did they respond?
My parents are very resilient people. And so
I'm going to say, so are you.
Yes. They were very much like, well, it's time to get to work. It's like, we have to get her well by whatever means it takes. And so they were very understanding. And, you know, my family is the reason why I'm still sitting on this couch,
You go home, and I read that you were like, I wasn't bathing. I wasn't doing anything until your mom cuts off your cell phone.
Yeah. They were so frustrated with me because I just could not function. I wasn't taking care of myself. My mom was basically like, I'm not going to pay for your cell phone, so you need to get a job. And so I went to the local Macy's at the Dying Mall in Florissant and applied for a seasonal job there. And of course I got it because I'm grossly overqualified. And
it's amazing they hired you.
I know. They needed seasonal workers. And so I was back there putting up Christmas lights and marking down merchandise.
As somebody who's definitely knows something about mental health issues, I will say as a parent, it's such a complicated thing because you're not always equipped to help.
My mother used to say that she felt like dealing with me was like dealing with an alcoholic. She just felt like we just kept going back to start over and over and over again. Like no matter what she did, she couldn't just will me over the finish line because I had to do the work. I had to realize what was wrong and how I was going to get better because I ultimately had to make the decision and do the work.
What made you do that? That's not an easy thing for most people to come to.
No. I just feel like the world had just kicked my ass so much at that point where I just couldn't be arrogant anymore. Like I had to accept I have a problem. I had to accept I have a severe mood disorder. I had to accept I have severe anxiety. I need to deal with these things and I need to do whatever it takes to get well.
Do you think being home and that proximity to your mom, in essence, is what turned you around?
Yeah, I definitely think being home helped a lot because I wasn't alone. My parents could keep an eye on me. That was good. And I was able to test things out again and like slowly, make my way back out into the world from the safety of their protection. So like I started my blog in 2007, that same year when I first moved back home. So I started in the fall after I had just quit a job that I flamed out at. It was a PR firm and I was so bad at that job. Like I just couldn't function. But I still wanted to write. And so I said, I'll just start a blog. Like it'll be easy. There's Blogspot. I'll just go on Blogger and make a blog. And so I called it The Black Snob and the blog was anonymous. And originally it was random, cheeky kind of thoughts, and then in January 2008, Barack Obama won Iowa. And I was like, oh, I wish I was working at a newspaper right now. I really want to write something. And I was like, I'll just write it on my blog. And so I just wrote something real quick about the presidential race and it just took off. And I started getting all this attention on the blog. And so I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. So I'm just going to keep writing. But me, like I'm an extremist. So of course, I was working on that blog like every day, like 6 days a week. I only took Sundays off.
You're still in the basement?
Yes. And I'm updating the blog 5 to 6 times a day. I was very dedicated to it, even though I was still working a job at Macy's folding sweaters. And the blog took off. Like I started getting pickup in the AP and I started going on NPR. I started to feel good about myself in this one aspect of my life. Because it was like, okay, I knew I had the skills as a writer to be able to make a name for myself. But I'm still like stuck because I'm not making any money. I don't know how to make any money off of the blog. I don't have an MBA. I'm not a business major. I don't know how to make money. I was on so much medication. Like I think I was on 11 different medications at one point. And it made me really flat and rather miserable. And so I had this turning point happen. I was in the hospital for suicidal ideation. It was my last hospitalization in 2009.
This is back home in St. Louis.
Yes, it's in St. Louis. And I get there and they recommend ECT. It's like shock therapy. It's the more crude name for it. They basically use these electrical pulses to try to like fix your severe mood swings. And I didn't want that. That was to me a last ditch. And so I tell the doctor, I think I'm on too much medication. And he's like, all right, we'll take you off some of it. And so he takes off most of the meds except for like an antidepressant and a mood stabilizer. And then around this same time, I get this invite to speak at Harvard at their Black Policy Conference. And I am excited, but I'm afraid. I've never been to the East Coast. It's been a while since I was on a plane. And I'm sitting there talking to my mom about it. And my mom was really worried. She didn't really want me to go at first. And so we go to my doctor and I tell him that I've been invited to speak at Harvard and I don't know what to do because I'm afraid of how it might affect me. And he goes, you know what? You're the type of person that it'll make you equally as sick to do nothing. You need to find a balance in your life where you can still take care of yourself and still pursue your dreams. So he's like, please go to Boston. I think it'll be good for you.
Did your mom come with you?
No, I went by myself. I did a whole East Coast tour with my blog. I visited DC, New York, and Boston, spoke at the Harvard Black Policy Conference, and I felt like my old self. I felt witty again. I had all this energy. I met lots of incredible people. And I remember like, oh, I am still this person. Like she didn't die. She didn't just go away because of the depression. She was there that whole time waiting to come back out again. The doctor was right. I needed to discover a work-life balance and I needed to get back out there. So I cashed in my 401k from the Bakersfield Californian and I told my parents I'm moving to Washington, D.C.
Were they petrified?
I mean, probably, but I was just like, like I've always been the type of person that I'm not afraid to take a risk. You have to be able to take a gamble on yourself if you really believe in your dreams and what you want to do. And I really did believe in my talent. And I was just like, I'm going to try.
Because you make the recovery seem so easy, and yet
No,
it was not.
No.
Right? It's like, oh, yeah, okay, you know what? And then I reconnect with the former self who finished school in 3 years and was a straight A student. And I'm like, I'm going to DC. But really, that was a very complicated period of your life.
Yeah, it was really hard. It was really, really hard. I remember I was up for a job and they asked me about my mental illness because this blogger had outed me as being in a mental hospital because I don't know, I guess he thought it was funny. People would Google me like on job searches and they would find out like, oh, she was hospitalized. And they would ask me about it. And then I would feel really awkward. And I would be honest. Like I said, yes, I was hospitalized.
Did that make people not want to hire you?
Oh, I'm sure. In that one case, they did still go ahead and hire me, but it was another cases where I didn't even get calls back.
So if somebody's listening and going through a similar experience, I mean, it is tough out there.
Yes.
What do you think they should take away from your ability to make that comeback?
I feel like the biggest thing they can probably take away from it is that, yes, it's long. Yes, it's hard, but it can be done. When I was in the hospital in LA at one of the lowest points in my life, one of the doctors realized I was a writer and I was a journalist. And they were like, you should write about your illness. And I'm just like, dude, I'm just trying not to die here. Like, look, give me some time. But I made a promise to myself at that point that if I ever got stable, I would live publicly with the illness. Because when I was sick, all I ever saw were other sick people. And I thought, well, this is it. This is just going to be my life. I'm just going to be in and out of hospitals. And I'm never going to amount to anything. I wouldn't have had that mindset if I had seen other people with bipolar disorder or anxiety disorders, like living their life and being open about it. And so I said, I'm going to be open about it if I get stable, because I want people to know that there's life after this.
It's amazing because in sharing your story, you're giving hope to other people.
That's what I want, because that's what I needed. I needed hope in that moment. I didn't have it. I said I was lucky and that I had a family that loved me and was willing to put up with me. The illness really pushes people away because it makes you so self-centered.
I read somewhere you said, I'm a weeble wobble. You can knock me down, but I pick myself back up.
Yes.
Kind of like whack-a-mole. That's a thing to learn because in life, we're all going to get hit repeatedly. Yes. I mean, that is sort of just the deal. And it seems like you learned that early. Because by the way, we get to DC and it's not like it's a bed of roses.
No.
So walk us through that chapter, because you get to DC.
Okay, so I get to DC. I get a job working for Win Without War, which is an anti-war nonprofit, which of course runs out of money shortly after I get hired there because Barack Obama has been elected and war is over, which actually wasn't true, but that's how most Americans felt, so they stopped donating to the project. And so after working there for 8 months, I get laid off. And I'm like trying to scrape together freelancing jobs. My blog only makes like $150 in Google ads a month. My dad was very helpful, so I'm grateful to him because there were many a times he paid my rent. I ended up freelancing for this website that no longer exists, owned by this very wealthy man who was insane. And he promised me the world, like, oh, if you become the editor of my site, I'm going to make you a millionaire. I'm like, oh, that sounds cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sure. And so I joined it. And like, I remember he bounced a check on me at one point. And so we had a really contentious relationship towards the end. And then I got the feeling that he wanted to push me out. So I just quit, because I leave jobs. Jobs don't leave me.
Yeah, you had a line, I think, in your commencement speech about like also leave a job if it's not the right job for you. You definitely are not afraid to step out, to pivot jobs, to pivot industries. I mean, you're such an interesting mix because you have this incredible resilience and fearlessness on the one side.
I mean, I operate in two different realms. So like on one side of me is very sensitive and is very moody and gets upset really easy and gets anxiety, is super frustrated. But then the other side of me is supremely confident, feels really good about themselves, thinks I'm like the cutest thing to ever be cute and that nothing could ever stop us. And if someone doesn't want to be my friend or our friend in this case, then they weren't a person worth even being around to begin with because we're amazing.
So you're in DC, multiple jobs. Somewhere along the line, you decided you needed to work for The Root. Tell the listeners what The Root is.
The Root is one of the leading African-American news publications. It's a digital publication that was started by Henry Louis Gates, the scholar, along with Don Graham, the former owner of the Washington Post.
So you decide you need to work there.
Yes.
And you really try.
Oh, yeah. I got in good with literally every managing editor The Root ever had.
But they didn't hire you.
No, not until Lynn Pitts was the managing editor, and Lynn Pitts hired me in 2015.
You're in DC and you go through a series of jobs, right?
Yes.
This works, that doesn't work. This works, that doesn't work. And then eventually you end up at what you think is your dream job.
Yes.
The Root.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Oh, yeah, it was. But it's like at the same time, like I was dealing with like severe depression. So it's like the job was cool. I couldn't bring myself to go into the office. I was depressed because one of my close friends had passed away from colon cancer, Toya Watts. It was just wonderful, just vibrant, engaging woman. She was in her 40s when she got diagnosed and she died like 6 months after the diagnosis. And so I had like this fatalistic viewpoint that nothing mattered because we're all going to die anyway.
Are you showing up at the job? Because this was before work from home was a thing.
I created work from home for myself. I did not go into the office. I still remember when my boss realized I wasn't going to the office because someone at the Washington Post wanted my office. They realized I was never in it.
How long did that take?
I think I wasn't coming in for the office. It was almost a year.
What?
Yeah, before she realized, because she was in New York.
Oh, I see.
Lynn was the type of boss where as long as the work got done, she didn't really like get too upset. And so when she found that I wasn't going to the office, she just kind of was like, I thought I was in so much trouble. And I still remember like after I was there for about a year, one day she and Donna Bird, who's the publisher at the time, called me. And I'm like, oh, it's over. Like I'm about to get fired. Like this is a wrap. Well, it was a good run. And so I go into the meeting and Donna and Lynn tell me that Lynn is leaving after being at the Root for about 3 years and that they want me to be the next managing editor and if I would be interested in the position. And I'm like shocked. My mood is so low that I can't even like appreciate what is happening. I remember they're telling me all about the role and trying to sell me on it and everything. They asked me if I had any questions. I only had one question. And I was like, well, is there money? Because I was making like $62,000 a year at the time as an associate editor in Washington, D.C., and my rent was like astronomical. And so I'm like, no, of course, there's money. And I was like, okay, can I have a day or two to think about it? And so I call my dad and I tell my dad I got offered the managing editor job. And my dad's like, what are you, take the job, you need the money. Take the job, you need the money. Obviously, I took the job. And it turned out great. It was one of the best decisions I ever made.
And you made amazing things happen at that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was there at the Root for a total of 6 years. In the first year of me being managing editor, the traffic increased by 300%.
What made you leave?
I was getting kind of complacent and a little bored. And then there was just the factor that I didn't own it. So there was only so much that I could ultimately do in the decision making. It was ultimately up to the people who owned it with what they wanted. And so this incredible opportunity popped up.
Which was?
The Huffington Post, which was HuffPost. I was very comfortable at the Root and I was very happy there. But to be editor-in-chief of HuffPost was just like a game changer. So I couldn't pass up on that opportunity.
It's such an interesting thing that you're describing, right? You're having this immense amount of success. Underlying it, there's so much turmoil.
Yes.
Probably visible mostly to you.
Yeah.
And so what was HuffPo like?
HuffPost was fun. It was tough at first. It was a big adjustment for me. That first year, I had a lot of anxiety.
I'm going to say you had anxiety the whole way.
I did. But
why was this different?
There was no reason for it to be different. It's just the highly competitive nature of this industry. And so like, I was really paranoid when I came into the BuzzFeed HuffPost family because I didn't know it was a site where I hadn't come from the ground up. Like at the Root, I started out as an associate editor. And even before that, I was a freelancer. And even before that, I knew every managing editor. So I had a good familiarity with the company, whereas with HuffPost, everything was brand new. I didn't really know anybody who worked there. And it was the pandemic. So everything was virtual. So I didn't actually meet any of my staff in person until like 9 months after I started working there.
That was a really weird period of time.
So weird.
And I read that you decided to leave because you were like, take me. There was a moment where you're like, please take me instead of the staff.
I had a conversation with our CEO, Jonah Peretti, about the organization and some of the steep cuts to the staff. And I just couldn't do that to my staff. You know, the journalists there are really diligent and really do believe in the work. And to me, that was more important that they continue to do it than for me to continue to be there.
You often talk about how media used to be just for the kids from the Ivy League.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I still feel the same way.
You do?
I mean, yes, because like even though it's easier to make a name for yourself from outside of the system, there's still a system. Everyone's just hiring people that they already know. And if you don't know a lot of people and you're not in those networks, if you're not in those rooms, if you're not a member of the Yale Club, yeah, it might be a little tough sometimes.
How did you break in, right? Because you weren't from the inside.
No. I'm really persistent and I don't take a lot of things personally. So I just basically just kept knocking on that door until someone let me in. And when they let me in, I think I'm a fun person. I'm charming and personable. People seem to like me.
Was it hard once the door opened?
I was authentic and I'm not ashamed because I feel like that's where people get messed up. And I always thought that was stupid. Like if you truly have the talent and the skill, like they'll get over it.
So you leave HuffPo.
Yes.
This is where you are now. You're writing what I love. This is a funny memoir about being a journalist with bipolar disorder. That's a very interesting project. You went back to blogging. I mean, I wondered as I read about your story, in some ways, blogging brought you back to life.
Yes. Blogging did save my life in many ways. Like it saved my career. You know, that was the beauty of that democratizing nature of the internet, and that I could write a website and show people that I knew what people like to read and communicate openly with people, and that could create a community, that could create an audience. And that led to almost every job I've had ever since.
So now you've gone back to blogging.
Yeah.
With your antisocial blog.
Yes.
You're a prolific writer, I have to say, because I see all the content that you produce. It's interesting. I really think of you not as a journalist, but I think of you as an artist.
Oh, thank you.
Because I think that artists have this need to use their voice, which is what you're describing. Have you ever considered that for yourself?
Oh, I consider myself to be an artist.
As you look forward, right? Memoir, you're doing a dinner series, which really is about belonging, which I think is also super interesting. What would you tell your younger self?
I would probably just give myself a hug. Because that's what I needed. And just tell her that everything's going to be fine.
Hug in some time.
Yeah. Like it sucks right now, but it doesn't have to always. Failure is part of success. Like, especially if you're starting, at the beginning, as opposed to like, the joke is some people are born on third base and they think they hit a triple. And then some people, in my case, aren't even born in the stadium. Like I'm somewhere down the street. And so it's like, yeah, you make it work and it's fine. It's okay. Failure is just part of that climb. It's just like how you learn that you're alive and that you're a human, and you get to learn from that mistake and apply that learnings to super success.
We live in a pretty messy time.
Yes.
What advice would you have for somebody who's either starting out or pivoting or sort of going through this messy moment of not being sure how to even get in or how to survive?
Oh, I would say one, stop being so hard on yourself. I think it's so often we compare ourselves to other people and their successes, and we see like, oh, this person has this or that, and why don't I? And I'm really struggling, and they're not. Like, their race is their race to run. You're running your own race. And in your race, your biggest competition is yourself, because that's who you're ultimately competing with. You're trying to be the best version of yourself. So you can't really worry with what other people are doing.
Every week, our goal is really to give advice to somebody who's going through a messy period or a messy moment, right? That's why we're doing the messy parts. If you were going to give some advice to somebody who's dealing with a setback, what's the thing you would tell them?
So you've had this setback and it feels awful. So what? Like, allow that feeling to happen, feel awful, but don't live there. That's not your home. Your home is where you're aspiring to be. Your home is within your heart. Your home is who you are. It's not in what you do. It's not in your job title. Remember who you are and always live and work from that heart space, not from the space of the job title. Focus on your community, focus on your family, focus on your friends, build relationships. Those are the things that actually have meaning and bring happiness in life.
I read that you were willing to gamble on yourself. How do other people learn from you to gamble on themselves?
Well, the first thing in my case, I had to make a pact with myself is that I don't let myself down. Other people can let me down. Situations can let me down. Society can let me down. I can't let me down. That means I have to hit the deadline. I have to get up in the morning. I have to make the interview. I have to perform. I have to make it work because I don't let myself down.
I'm going to try and ask you some rapid fire questions.
All right.
Karaoke song or walk-on music?
Oh, Baby, I'm a Star by Prince.
What food would you bring to a potluck?
Banana pudding.
What alternative career would you have picked?
Artist.
What are you reading?
James.
What would somebody be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, I'm terrified of driving. I have driving anxiety.
I have to say, this was as amazing as I thought it was going to be. I can't tell you how excited I am about your new chapter.
Oh, thank you.
And you definitely have a gift of words. So can't wait for your book. We're all ready for it. And please, everybody, go and subscribe to the Antisocial blog.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the episode. Tell your friends, download, subscribe, and don't forget to also drop us a review.